Hey everyone, Dark Gray back again with a how to play CUBICS tutorial. Now this is a follow-up video to my in-depth CUBIC deck profile, so if you're unfamiliar with the deck or what the cards can do, I really encourage you to go check out that previous video, which I will link down in the description box below, along with our CUBIC Discord link. Odds are, if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in the deck, so feel free to join our awesome community and keep making strides for CUBICS. With that being said, CUBICS are often portrayed as overly linear. Other tutorial videos only ever show the basic link climbing combo that the deck can do, but there's so much more that it can accomplish. In this video, we will cover the basic link climb combo in addition to other link climbing routes, card interactions, other variants of the deck, 2-card combos, synchros and XYZ monsters, how to extend with the deck, going first plays, and so much more. There are some points that I want to highlight for some of the new players. First thing I'm going to highlight is Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. Now, important thing to remember with him is his effect that he is unaffected by other monsters' activated effects whose original attack is 3000 or less. This is going to include your own monsters, but also remember it is specifically activated effects. So monster effects that are continuous on the field will still affect him. But otherwise, he doesn't care too much for other monster effects. So don't forget about this and accidentally get cheated out of a game because somebody effect veilers your Crimson Nova. Now, Duza is an amazing Stratos for the deck, but he has so much more utility than that because he can send multiple kinds of cubic spells and traps to the graveyard. Cubic Karma is only a search, but with Cubic Wave, that could be a negation. Cubic Dharma is a little bit of recursion. Unification is somewhat of a form of protection and other kind of recursion. Next, we're going to talk about Buster Gundle, the Cubic Behemoth, Indiora Doomvault, the Cubic Emperor, and Unification of the Cubic Lords. Now, the reason I paired all of these cards together is they all have effects that activate when either they themselves are destroyed by battle, or in the case of Unification, when a face-up cubic monster is destroyed by battle. They will be able to go ahead and summon out monsters either with Buster Gundle and Indiora Doomvault from the graveyard, or with Unification from the hand or deck. Now, since this activates when a cubic monster is destroyed by battle, it is still in the damage step. So this is going to be important for remembering, since your opponent can only respond with card effects that can activate in the damage step. Now, a quick point in relation to my specific deck profile, we have 3 Vijam the Cubic Seed. Now, while he's not entirely necessary to play at 3, with Cubic Karma, one thing to note is if you do end up getting a Crimson Nova on board and you have a Cubic Karma in hand, you can send all 3 Cubic Seeds from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and that will boost him up to 5400, which will put him in the range to be able to OTK your opponent by himself if they happen to leave an open board. Then we have Cubic Wave, which will allow us to double our cubic monster's attack while cutting our opponent's monster's attack in half. Now, the specific way that this card is worded means we do not need to decrease our opponent's monster enabled to get the attack buff. So if you ever run into a card that is unaffected by other card effects, you can still target it with Wave and we will still get the boost to be able to beat over it. This can be important sometimes if we end up hitting a Waking the Dragon if our opponent summons a Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. Next up, I want to quickly cover the variants of the deck that you could play. My specific build is going to be focused around Monster Gate, plus a single reasoning that we have. However, I feel it's important to mention some of the other deck variants, as there are some combos that I will mention later in the video. Original variants of the deck often played 3 Summoner Monk and a single Gen X Ally Birdman. While this is a build many of us start with, I've moved on to a Monster Gate variant of the build just because Summoner Monk builds are so normal summon reliant. So if your Summoner Monk or Duza gets negated, that pretty much ends your turn. However, Summoner Monk can be another option if you choose to play a more rank 4 focused deck. Along with Gen X Ally Birdman, it can also enable some synchro plays for the deck. Then you'll have to forgive some proxies that I had to make up, but I wanted to make sure to show you guys the cards. We could also play 3 Magician Souls with the single Apprentice Illusion Magician. This can also be another great option as it adds a little bit more flexibility for your card pool than the Monster Gate build. And the discard and draw effect of Magician Souls can be super beneficial for the deck. Plus, the brick in Apprentice Illusion Magician really isn't a brick for CUBICS anyways, since it's also a free discard and special summon. However, the reason I still prefer Monster Gate builds over Magician Souls builds is that Magician Souls is a hard once per turn, so if you open multiples, it can be a bit of a brick. Plus, I enjoy the higher power ceiling of the Monster Gate build. Now, going over the basic link climbing combo that CUBICS can do, it's just going to involve a single Duza, the Meteor Cubic Vessel, and an extra body on board, which we can access through a myriad of ways. So what we're going to do to start the combo is we're going to go ahead, we will normal summon our Duza. Duza's effect is going to let us send a unification from the deck to the graveyard. Now what we're going to do is we'll go link these two off into a Nightmare Phoenix. Now, Unification's effect in the graveyard is going to trigger to let us banish it to summon a Duza from the deck. And then we'll go ahead and send another Unification, since both of these effects are not once per turn. Then we'll go ahead, we'll link these two off into a link 3 with Nightmare Unicorn. We'll go ahead, activate another Unification to go ahead and summon out another Duza. Now, Duza's effect again, we'll send the last Unification, and we'll link these two off for a link 4 of our choice, which we will use Topologic Bomber Dragon for this example. Now, Unification will trigger again, and we're going to summon out a Buster Gundle, the Cubic Behemoth. Now, I like to end this combo with a Buster Gundle or an Indiora Doomvault, just because on our opponent's turn, if they send it to the graveyard, either by battle or card effect, we'll be able to go ahead and trigger its effect to summon out the 3 Duzas that we have in the graveyard, to send anything that we need to the grave, and then it can also add a cubic card from our deck or graveyard back to our hand, which is just an awesome +3. Now, while Buster Gundle was summoned off of the effect of Unification, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn. So, in tandem with Topologic Bomber Dragon, when it's summoned to a link arrow that it points to, it's going to destroy all monsters in the main monster zones. But, like we said, with Buster Gundle being summoned off Unification, it'll be able to stick to the field while being able to activate that trigger. Now that we've gone ahead and gone over the basic link climbing combo, there's a few different routes that we can take that I want to go ahead and show everyone. And then this is here where we have a few different routes that we can take. By summoning Duza, we're going to send another Unification. We will link these two off into a link 3, and then a great link 3 staple in this deck is going to be Topologic Trizbana for getting rid of any problematic back row that our opponent may have. So here you would go ahead and you would use Unification's effect to go ahead and summon out another Duza. Now, Duza's effect will activate here in chain with Topologic Trizbana to send that Unification. Now, Topologic Trizbana's effect will banish the Duza, Unification's effect will trigger, and then you can go ahead and still end on a Buster Gundle or Indiora Doomvault for those follow-up turns. Now, coming back to our original situation with the Nightmare Phoenix and the Duza being summoned off Unification, dumping another Unification, another route that we can take this for one of our great extra deck monsters is we will link these two off into that Nightmare Unicorn, and then here Unification will trigger. And instead of summoning out another Duza, we are going to go ahead and summon out a Vijam, the Cubic Seed. Now the reason we do that is because here we can go ahead, link off our Vijam for a link Karibo, and then this is the way that our deck is actually going to go ahead and access our secondary boss monster in Crusadia Avramax. So this is just an important combo to let everybody know about as an easy way to get into Avramax, or again, if you had extra bodies on board, it would just be easy to go into any other link 2s if you wanted, but all too often people go through some very linear link climbing combos, so I just wanted to go ahead and example some of the different routes that the deck can take. For this next combo, I want to highlight how Vijam and Foolish Burial Goods is also a 2-card link 4. So for this combo, we're simply going to start by activating Foolish Burial Goods and sending a Unification to the graveyard. Then next, we will normal summon our Vijam, the Cubic Seed. Then we will link off Vijam for a link Karibo. This in turn is going to activate our Unification to summon a Duza from our deck. And as you saw before, this is going to start our entire link climb. It'll send our Unification. We will link these two off into a Pentastag this time, one of my favorite link monsters in the deck. Then Unification will trigger again, summoning out another Duza, send a unification, link them off into a link 3. We have Nightmare Unicorn, trigger the last unification to summon out the Duza. So here we used all of our unifications. So at this point we can go ahead and send any other cubic spell or trap card that we may want from our deck to the grave. So here I think we'll go ahead and simply send a Cubic Karma. That way we get an extra search. Then we can link these two off into our link 4. We'll use Topologic Bomber Dragon again. And now we have a link 4 and an extra resource in the grave to go ahead and banish a Cubic Karma to grab any other monster that we may want. So here we could grab a Crimson Nova, or another route that we could take is we could send a Cubic Dharma, and by banishing a Cubic Dharma, we could add a Duza back from our graveyard to the hand for some follow-up plays. Now, the reason I shared all the variants of the deck that you could play is because they all have different combos that you can take advantage of. Now, here I'm going to show a combo involving Summoner Monk plus Karma in hand is a 2-card Link 4 that uses 3+ effect monsters. So this could be an important combo for you if you are interested at all in running Boral Sword or Boral Load or any other Link 4 monster that may use 3+ effect monsters. So, to start the combo, all you would do is you would normal summon your Summoner Monk, who would then go into defense position. Then, using its effect to ditch the Cubic Karma, you would go ahead and you would summon out Duza. Then, Duza would be able to send a unification. And now, using the Karma that you originally sent, using Summoner Monk, you'll go ahead and you'll grab a Gear Guile to start our Link Climb combo. So, we'll go ahead, we'll send the Duza to summon out the Gear Guile, who will then trigger the unification, and then summoning out another Duza. Here, Duza will go ahead and send another unification, and then here we'll go into a link 2. We'll use Nightmare Phoenix for this. Then unification will trigger. We will summon out our last Duza, who will send our last unification, and then since we have 3+ effect monsters, we can go ahead and we will link all of these off into a Boral Sword Dragon. Then, using the last unification in the graveyard, we can go ahead and summon out a Buster Gundil or Indiora Doomvault. And then this way we could go ahead, push for an OTK by using Boral Sword's effect to change this into defense position. So that's how we can get into a link 4 3+ effect monster. Now with the Summoner Monk build, it's pretty straightforward how you would go ahead and get into some rank 4 XYZ plays with that build. However, here I'm going to show you how you can get into an easy rank 4 using Duza and Monster Gate. So this 2-card combo will start by normal summoning Duza to send a unification to the graveyard. Here you'll go ahead and you'll activate Monster Gate to tribute Duza, and then here it really does not matter which of the 2 cubic monster names that we hit. We could hit a Vijam or a Duza, it really doesn't matter. Here let's pretend that we hit a Vijam instead of a Duza. So because Duza was tributed, we'll activate Unification, and Unification will go ahead and summon out another Duza. Here Duza's effect will activate to send a unification, and then it is at this point that we will link off the Vijam to go ahead and link summon for a Link Karibo. This is going to activate our unification, since we linked off the Vijam, to go ahead and summon out another Duza. And then here, since we're not going to end up linking off our Duza again, we can send anything that we would like. It could be a Karma, a Wave, anything that would be necessary in the moment. We'll go ahead and we'll send a Cubic Karma just to get an extra search. Now, we're going to go ahead and we'll overlay these two to go ahead and XYZ summon any rank 4 that we might want in this situation. Here, I like Dugara's Timeless because it can get us extra draws and discards for more searches and just extra names for Nova in hand. Now, CUBICS aren't typically a synchro-based deck, but with the inclusion of Gen X ally Birdman in some builds, you can access some level 7 synchros that can be super beneficial for the deck. Here, this combo would work by normal summoning our Duza, which will then send a unification to the graveyard. You'll activate Gen X ally Birdman's effect to summon it out from our hand by returning a monster to our hand. And since a cubic monster left the field, we'll use unification to go ahead and summon out another Duza, which can go ahead, send another unification, and then it is here that we can go ahead and synchro summon these two monsters into either a Dawn Dragster, say if we're going first and we want a spell or trap negation, or a Black Rose Dragon if we're going second to clear the board. Now the nice thing here is that unification will trigger to go ahead and let us summon out another monster. Here we can just go ahead and summon Duza, and then Duza could send a unification or a karma or anything else that we need. But since Duza was summoned off unification, again, it will not be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn, which is just a great combo to go ahead and clear boards or push for game. Next up, I wanted to show a couple in-archetype combos that we can do. Here is going to be a 3-card combo to go into a Buster Gundle or an Indiora Doomvolt. To go ahead and start, we are going to activate our Foolish Burial Goods first. Now, the reason we're doing this instead of Duza is because if we are ever in a situation where we have both of these in hand and we want to send a unification to the graveyard, it's always going to be better to start with your Foolish Burial Goods. That way your Duza is protected if anything happens to it on its summon. Also, if our Foolish Burial Goods gets ashed, at least it's not eating up our normal summon. Then we'll go ahead and we'll normal summon the Duza to send our second unification to the graveyard. Then we'll activate our Monster Gate to tribute our Duza. Now here again, it won't necessarily matter what we send from our deck to the graveyard. Here we'll just pretend that we hit a Vijam. Now since we tributed a Duza, we are going to trigger both of the unification effects to summon out both other Duzas from our deck. Now, both of their effects will trigger on summon. Usually I would want to send 2 Karmas to the graveyard because those are just 2 extra searches to get a Crimson Nova out on the board. But for this one, I think we're going to go ahead, we'll send 1 Karma and 1 Unification, just to show a little bit extra for the combo. I'll start off by using one of the Karmas that we sent to search out a Crimson Nova for us. However, if we did not already have a Buster Gundle or an Indiora Doomvolt in hand, we would be able to search them out in that way. Then, using one of their effects, we will send these 3 face-up cubic monsters to the graveyard in order to summon out a Buster Gundle, the Cubic Behemoth. And then the last unification can actually trigger here if we wanted to do so, in order to summon out the other one from hand or deck. Now, there's not too much of a reason to do this, but it is a cool little interaction that could give you some extra protection because now they have 2 monsters that they cannot destroy by battle or send to the graveyard by card effect unless they want us to trigger all of our other Duzas or summon out a Vijam from the graveyard and get a huge +3 effect. So that's just a fun little combo on how you would hard summon a Buster Gundle or Indiora Doomvolt in this deck. So this last in-archetype combo will also lead us into our going first options for CUBICS. This will involve the support card from Dual Overload with Cubic Ascension. Now, Cubic Ascension's effect is, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, special summon 1 Vijam the Cubic Seed from your deck, and if you do, change the attack target to it and perform damage calculation. Then, if your opponent's life points are at least 2,000 higher than yours, you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 Vijam the Cubic Seed from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Then, if only your opponent controlled a monster when this effect was activated, you can special summon up to 2 more Vijam the Cubic Seed. You can only use this effect of Cubic Ascension once per turn. This is where I'll have to give a shout out to RNS Gaming because I didn't pay too close attention to the actual effect and combos you could do with this card until it clicked when I was watching one of their videos. So the initial combo we'll show is simply using the Graveyard effect. This is because with the 3 copies of Duza and Foolish Burial Goods, along with any copies of the card itself that you would play, there is almost always an available way to get into the graveyard. For this combo, we'll go ahead and we will start with a Foolish Burial Goods. This is going to go ahead and send the Cubic Ascension to the graveyard. After that, we'll pass the turn to our opponent, which at any point, if we take enough damage, should be 2,000 or less life points than our opponent, we can go ahead and activate the effect of Cubic Ascension to summon out a Vijam from our deck. The great thing is, since we used Foolish Burial Goods, or even if we used a Duza, if they destroyed it and sent it to the graveyard and we control no monsters, its effect will allow us to still summon out 2 more Vijams from our hand, deck, or graveyard. This is an amazing effect because, as we saw, it is a huge plus for us and an easy way to survive until our next turn. Since Vijam cannot be destroyed by battle, it's often difficult for decks to get rid of, especially if they do not have any effects that pop cards in the battle phase. Now, what we can also show is if we open up Cubic Ascension in our hand. If we do end up opening the Cubic Ascension, we'll simply set it to our side of the field. Then, if it does end up getting popped and sent to the graveyard, it doesn't really matter because, as we just saw, it has an amazing graveyard effect that will allow us to survive until the next turn. But say our opponent doesn't pop the card. When they declare an attack, we can go ahead and activate Cubic Ascension, which will then bring out a Vijam, the Cubic Seed, to block the attack. And at this point, how we can still extend into the graveyard effect combo is we will activate Vijam, the Cubic Seed's effect, to place it in the spell and trap card zone. Now, we would only do this if we know for sure that we would not get OTK'd this turn, but if we already took an attack to be 2,000 less life points than our opponents, at any point during this turn or even into ours, we can go ahead and banish the Cubic Ascension to summon out the other 2 Vijams from our hand, deck, or graveyard. Now, when it rolls around to our turn, we can go ahead and special summon the Vijam out from the spell and trap card zone, and we still end up with our 3 Vijams on field to do anything that we may want. We could go into a link climb, we could even summon Indiora Doomfold or Buster Gundil directly from our hand, or simply attack into our opponent to turn off any of their monster effects that they may have. In addition, if we did have a Cubic Dharma on field, we wouldn't even take the battle damage from that. This is an amazing combo and very close to being in my main or sideboard, but I simply don't play it currently because dinosaurs are in the meta, and these would just become fodder for Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Now, sadly, I will admit that CUBICS can have a difficult time going first if we don't have any going first specific cards or other support cards to help us, but we do have a few other options I'd like to walk us through. First off, what we can do, which is honestly not the greatest opening, but sometimes not the worst, is if you have a Duza in hand, you'll simply go ahead, you'll normal summon Duza, activate his effect to send a unification to our graveyard. In this way, we still have some recursion and some protection because if anything happens to our Duza, what we'll go ahead and do is it will trigger the unification, which then can summon out another Duza, which in turn could send another unification if we're afraid of our second Duza getting taken care of in any way, or setting up any Karma, Dharmas, or waves for the follow-up turn. The other option is, depending on what our graveyard looks like, we could go ahead and summon out a Buster Gundil or Indiora Doomfold, just for a little bit of added protection and recursion if anything were to happen with the Buster Gundil or Indiora Doomfold. And again, remember, unification makes it so that our cubic monsters cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn, so sometimes it's just enough to be able to survive and then swing in with Crimson Nova the next turn. Now, another going first option that we do have in the deck, depending on the cards that you may play, will be a variation of our basic link climbing combo. Here, we would go ahead and activate the Foolish Burial Goods to send a unification, again, to protect our Duza in case anything were to happen. Then we'll go ahead and normal summon our Duza to send our Karma to the graveyard, which will then banish to search our Geargile. Geargile will send Duza to the graveyard to special summon itself in order for us to summon out another Duza, who will then go ahead and send another unification. Here is our going first option, where we can link these 2 off into, sorry for the proxy, a IP Masquerena. Here, unification will trigger. We'll summon out our last Duza, who will then send our last unification to the graveyard. So the board we ended on here took quite a few resources, but what we have here is some interaction with IP Masquerena, where we could go ahead and link it off during our opponent's turn with the Duza to summon either a Nightmare Unicorn, a Topologic Trisbana, or any other Link 3 monster that we may want. Here we'll go ahead and use the Nightmare Unicorn. And then when it links off with the Duza, we can trigger the unification to go ahead and summon out our Buster Gundil or Indiora Doomvault. This way, again, we have some kind of recursion. Just in case anything were to happen to it, we could go ahead and special summon out the Duzas and then send anything else that we may want, plus adding that card from the deck or graveyard back to the hand. Now, obviously, all of these combos can change depending on how many extenders and what your board state looks like, but these are just some simple going first boards that CUBICS can set up. Other plays that you could look at are involving some XYZ monsters. Go into any number of great rank 4 XYZ monsters, either Abyss Dweller, Tornado Dragon, Baguska, all depending on different matchups that you may have. Next is going to be a going first combo that I came up with when Instant Fusion was still at 3. However, if you have other ways to incorporate tuners into your deck, it is still feasible in this current meta. Here, what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and we will normal summon the Duza, which in turn is going to send the unification from our deck to the graveyard. Then we will activate Instant Fusion to go ahead and summon Sea Monster of Theseus. Now, what we can do here is we can link these two off into, again, sorry for the proxies, we have a Crystron Needle Fiber or Halqifibrax with the new TCG name. Then, using the unification trigger, we'll go ahead and summon the Duza, while Needle Fiber's effect will let us special summon any tuner that's level 3 or less from our deck, which plenty of hand traps match the condition that we are looking for. Here specifically, we want a light or a machine monster, so we'll go ahead and we're going to summon a Cyframe Gear Gamma. Now, with Duza's effect resolving, we're going to send a unification to the graveyard. We are going to link these two off into a Union Carrier. Now, unification will go ahead and trigger, and we are going to summon out a Vijam the Cubic Seed. Now, using the Union Carrier effect, we're going to go ahead and we are going to equip a Dragon Buster Destruction Sword to our Vijam the Cubic Seed because they are both dark attribute monsters. So here we've created kind of a soft lock where our opponent cannot use the extra deck, and Vijam is actually extremely difficult for opponents to get rid of if they do not have their extra deck because it cannot be destroyed by battle. So this can end up sticking on the board for quite some time. Included with that is Crystron Needle Fiber's effect can activate to summon out any synchro that you may want, which could be something like a Desert Locust just to take another card out of their hand. In this way, we could go ahead and OTK or stall as much as we need while locking our opponent out of the extra deck. So everyone, that concludes my Cubic How to Play tutorial. I really hope you found this helpful, and if you know anybody else who is interested in Cubics, please feel free to share this video with them. If you have any comments or questions, let me know, and I'd love to hear about anything you have done involving Cubics by hitting me up either on YouTube or Twitter at DarkGrayYGO. Other than that, I hope you're all staying safe out there, and I look forward to seeing what the future has in store for Cubics. Peace out, everyone.